a good ending there. All right, well, coming up on News 3 Live at 12:30, e-cigarettes, or electronic cigarettes as they're officially called, rising in popularity, but so is the number of kids being poisoned by the toxic chemicals. Next, we're talking with an expert about the dangers and what you need to know about how you can protect your children. We're going to fill you in coming up on the other side of the break.
And a battle.
Then poison prevention, e-cigarettes posing a rising danger to kids, how you can protect them. We have an expert in studio. News 3 Live at 12:30 starts right now. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it there, Vicki. Well, today marks the beginning of Poison Prevention Week, and I am joined right now by Dr. Eileen Shih. She's been on our show before. Thank you so much for coming back. She's a local pediatrician, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this. You know, people may not be very aware about the rising danger, I guess, we've seen in children possibly becoming poisoned by these e-cigs. I know they've gained a lot of attention, you know, in the media as of late. So let's talk a little bit about the awareness that you're trying to raise with this effort.
Well, as of 2014, this year so far, we've had more than 2,700 calls, particularly about cigarette smoking and e-cigarettes, and actually half of these were over 6-year-olds. So that's a big concern for pediatricians because of the ingestion. These devices often come with these refills, which are these this big, and so when a toddler comes to and sees this, the toddler would think this is something that they can eat and they can ingest. So that's why it's an increased exposure risk for nicotine.
And this, of course, being the e-cig here that you're talking about. Is it, in terms of just how much, I guess, exposure does a child have to, I guess, the e-cigarette vapors for it to be considered potentially dangerous or harmful or poisonous?
Well, e-cigarettes are a tobacco product, and the liquid has nicotine. So any amount of vapor that a user vapes could be secondhand smoking, and there is nicotine exposure. Obviously, if you come into direct contact with the liquid that comes out of the cartridges, you should try to wash off with soap and water to clean it for at least 15 minutes. But just being around the cigarettes, because I would treat it like any other nicotine product, exposure over time will still build and accumulate toxic effects.
So you're saying, even though the argument is that some may say that e-cigs are supposed to be less, say, harmful than your traditional cigarettes, are you saying that that exposure could be potentially just as harmful as exposure to?
Yes, it's marketed so that people who are smoking can kind of taper off their habits of smoking tobacco, which this regular cigarettes has more toxins than the e-cigarettes, but over time there's still nicotine, so there's still possibility having nicotine addiction when you are smoking around toddlers.
Well, very quickly, if you are in a situation where you feel like your child might have been, you know, exposed to potentially harmful levels of, you know, these vapors, or may have some symptoms of possibly being poisoned, like what do they need to do?
Symptoms of, well, if you do think your child has symptoms, and symptoms would be abdominal cramping usually, sometimes respiratory rates changes, heart rate goes up, or your child might seem confused or agitated, I would call the poison control line. There are a service that's open 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Okay, very good. Dr. Eileen Shih, thank you so much giving us this information, just raising some awareness about an issue people may not know much about. So thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
All right, Vicki, let's send it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Chris.